The Marlins dropped the series at home to the Cincinnati Reds. However, there was a debut for Eury Perez, which was stunning in many ways. There was also the injury bug biting these Marlins just at exactly the wrong time. Tons to get into, all on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England, and welcome to Locked On Marlins. This, of course, is your daily Marlins podcast. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up on Twitter at @MiamiMarlins_UK. If you're listening to the pod, hit subscribe. Of course, it is your team every day, and thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. There is a YouTube channel. Head on over to there. It's the Monday episode, guys. Hit subscribe as well while you're there with the YouTube channel. It's Locked On Marlins. Delighted to welcome back in his regular Monday slot. The UK GOAT, Shaun Barrett, is in the house. How we doing, brother?
It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has.
It seems like we've come color coordinators as well this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob Berry is in. I don't know. Jacob Berry is in still. The MLB pipeline, top 100, I think I saw today. They adjusted it. Jacob Berry, third-rated prospect, I think, for the Marlins, in the low 70s. I did see Alex Ferreira was not happy with that, calling out Jacob Berry should be nowhere near the top 100. Nevertheless, Eury Perez is the number one prospect for the Marlins, and we're going to start the show with that guy specifically, Shaun Barrett. Friday start for Eury Perez. There was a lot of hype, a lot of build-up. It was against the Reds. We weren't quite sure how long he would go. We weren't quite sure what to expect. Just try to summarize for me your thoughts in terms of how the start went and what kind of springboard this has for him in the next couple of weeks / months here with the big club.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge for him, isn't it? I mean, for me, it was a bit of a surprise to see the Marlins, push that button, bring him up. But it is a case, I think we discussed it, is if they were going to bring him up to it as soon as possible, let's get him up to the majors. Let's see what he can do. I think the reason why that surprised me was just the service time and the way that I've seen Marlins play.
It's a new Marlins, maybe.
Yeah, with big prospects. I think it is a case of if the Marlins are trying to tread water and stay around 500, stay in it, essentially.
Yeah.
This was required, I think.
Yep.
The way that the pitching has been, well, some of it's injured, some of it's underperforming. It is a case of the Marlins need every single major league talented pitcher, which I think Eury is, and they needed it now, so they made the decision. And for me, the stats aren't overly important in the sense of, don't get me wrong, pitched well. It was more just the comfort. He seemed the moment wasn't too big for him.
No,
I think he was disappointed not to get through the fifth inning. I think you could see that on his face. But then the videos afterwards, smiling with the game ball and things like that was good to see. I think the stuff is elite, isn't it? Some of the movement on those pitches, it made me audibly moan in my living room on my own, which speaks partly to how well he pitched, but also how awfully lonely I am recently.
When Shaun Barrett is audibly moaning alone in his living room watching a Marlins game, it typically is because of a Garrett Cooper home run. But we now have a new sheriff in town, perhaps, Eury Perez. I'm with you, mate. I watched it on delay, so I wasn't watching live, which is usual for me with those real late ones. But I watched it without spoilers, and I must say I was intently watching a start as I would say I have done all year. And I was blown away, totally blown away. What you can't get away from the fact that dude has only just turned 20. He's only just turned 20. It's insane that Eury Perez is up at the big leagues doing what he's doing already in his first ever start where he would have been hyped. He would have been juiced, everything. he would have been feeling nervous, no doubt about it. And for me, particularly those early innings, mate, he didn't show any signs of that whatsoever. The first time through the lineup felt glorious to me. Yes, okay, some people could, turn and say, gave a couple of home runs, etc. Fair enough. But overall, for me, I'm just blown away by it all, to be honest with you. And post-game, mate, what we get then is, naturally, to skip a ton of questions about Eury Perez. And my main takeaways were that Skip used, I think, the language of, he's ready. And I think this, to me, points to Eury Perez. This isn't just going to be like shuttled in for maybe a start against the Reds, a start against the Nats, and then go back and continue down at the AAA maybe. This sounds like he's going to be managed closely, rightly so, and he needs to be. But this doesn't sound like a short-term thing for the Marlins, right?
I think he's up for good. I think it is a case of, you're right, he'll be managed. I don't think we'll see north of 95 pitches, nor really should we see that in a start. I think 140, 160, depending on how things are going with the team, is probably that sort of full stop for him. I think I don't like the idea that a guy that's gone from throwing 70 pitches 2 years ago to 106 last year, going up to somewhere near double that scares me. And especially, as you said, he's 20 years old. Like, yes, he's up at the majors, and yes, the stuff plays, and yes, he should be there, but he's still so young, and the arm is so, there aren't many miles on it, and you need to build that up slowly. So I think he's up for good. I think the Marlins will be careful. I hope they will be, with his innings and his pitches. And it's everything, isn't it? It's those no more than 30, 35 pitches in an inning.
Yeah.
It's all those things that you just need to manage the arm, because the last thing the Marlins want to do is get into a situation where what we saw with Max Meyer. I don't think there was anything that, sometimes you can do everything right, and baseball's a tough sport, and the arms are delicate. But I think you need to put yourself in a situation where you've done the best practices, you've done everything you can to protect Eury, because he is one of those arms that could be a top of the rotation ace for your team for the next, hopefully he's the number 2 behind Sandy if he can turn it around.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's talk about Sandy as well, mate. Let's transition into this one. Sandy followed up Eury Perez, so Sandy got the start on the Saturday game, and it was all going swimmingly well. Jazz Chisholm also chipping in with a home run. Brian De La Cruz chipping in with a home run. So everything looked to be on script for the Marlins here. They obviously lost that opener, but it looked to be, rebounding in perfect style. And then the wheels fell off. And it felt like that's 2 starts in a row where the wheels slightly fall off. I, last week, remember saying, I was like, Skip, I think, messed that one up. I understood why he went the way he went, but I felt like he could have pulled Sandy earlier in that start, particularly against the lefties that were all kind of queued up for the Cubs in that game. Are we getting to a point here where there's a little bit too much trust in Sandy Alcantara? I know the pen is gassed, and so that plays into this as well. And Sandy has earned this, and Sandy wants to go the full games. But I do wonder, after 2 similar instances on the spin, if maybe Sandy has managed a slight bit differently moving forward. I don't know. Where's your head at with this one? I have to call out as well. I watched this game, not quite live, but almost live, but I had so much rum punch on board. It was ridiculous. So my memory is a touch hazy. Hopefully Shaun's is a bit better than mine. What were you seeing, Shaun?
At the moment, probably not. I think it is a case of, most pitchers, most human pitchers, most pitchers that aren't Sandy, once you get to the 3rd time through the lineup, that's where you see, as you put it, the wheels fall off. And for Sandy, that tended to be where he got stronger.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was because he was so efficient at getting those ground balls and those double plays. He could work with just his fastball to begin the first time through the lineup. Second time through the lineup, that's when he started to mix in more and more of the off speed and the breaking ball. and get the second time through the lineup. And then the third time through the lineup, he'd use both, but that fastball would go from 94, 95,
Yeah.
96 to 97, 98, 99.
Mm.
And he had that second gear. I think what we're seeing at the moment, or at least from my uneducated eye, is that he's needing to use that fastball
Yep.
at its max early.
He is.
So that when we get into the third time through the lineup, they've already seen it. And that's when he's getting hit. And I think, yeah, kudos to Sandy. He wants to be that guy, doesn't he? He wants to be that ace, and he is. But I think sometimes we spoke last year when he was going 8 and 9 about the idea that the Marlins' best setup man and closer on a day that Sandy's pitching is Sandy.
Mm.
That might not be the case anymore.
No.
They've got that high leverage bullpen arms that are playing up to that level. And I think it is a case of it's challenging for Skip. Absolutely challenging for Skip, especially when you've got a guy like Sandy who doesn't want to come off that mound. Mm. But sometimes you need to be that strong manager that says, you've done your job. You've put us in the position. You've done your job. Let's let the other guys finish this game off for you.
Yep.
You know, at the end of the day, is Sandy. We need all the innings we can get from Sandy some days, but some other days we need to, take care of him a little bit. I know we've got used to him being a superhuman, but you've got to be careful.
Completely agree. Completely echo that, mate. It's just, I think it does go back to last year where he was the best closer and he was the best setup guy because the pen just wasn't there last year. It wasn't, and it is there this year. And it's a strength for the Marlins. And so actually piecing together a Sandy start for 7 innings and then the strength of the team, which is the leverage pen. We're going to talk about AJ Puck though shortly, but this start happened before. Well, not really actually. Puck, I think, was already down at this point, and the Marlins kind of knew that. But either way, the start before that, Floro, Puck, Brazaban, Scott, these guys have just been doing it, and they've been doing it consistently. And there's no need for Sandy. And to your point, the one thing that has stood out most this year with Sandy Alcantara is the fact that he is digging in to his 8th inning gas in the 2nd and 3rd inning. He's having to really dig deep this year. He's not quite right. And we know that. We can kind of sense it. We can feel it. And he's having to dig so deep so early that actually 7 innings should be seen as a win, not a complete game is a win, if that makes sense. I think that's the difference now. And I'm really intrigued to Skip dial it back a touch with Sandy. And for me, I think we should be. It should be under consideration. I know every game's different, but we're in that phase now after the last 2 incidents where maybe it's, we don't need complete game Sandy every time. And that's not what we're shooting for, potentially. I don't know. Want to talk about AJ Puck shortly, the bullpen. Want to talk about Jesus Sanchez. Want to talk about Jazz Chisholm Jr. Want to talk about Garrett Cooper. Tons to get into. Before we do that, first ad of the day. Only live read, actually. It's our good friends over at eBay Motors with the teal graphics. Yes, sir. They've got them rolling for me. And for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Can't say fairer than that. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, Shaun. Devastating announcement, I would say. Boy, oh boy, it was not what the Marlins were looking for, where AJ Puck to the 15-day IL. AJ Puck, for me, has been the biggest difference maker outside of Luis Arias, and maybe just as important as Luis Arias in 2023 for the Marlins. For them to have someone they can trust, rely on in the 9th, has been game-changing. Because let's be honest, this offense still putrid. The rotation, way below par. The bullpen, keeping this team alive. And the Marlins losing AJ Puk, mate. How big of a blow is this for this team at this point?
Oh, it's huge. And I think the word that you used there in trust was the key thing. Like, you can look at the numbers, and he's pitched really, really well. The Marlins have got quite a few bullpen pieces actually that have pitched really well, which is a positive. But that trust, we've gone a couple of years now where we haven't had a guy that we can trust in that ninth, and Puk was doing the job. And I think the only saving grace that we have is, I think Floro didn't deserve to lose the job.
No.
It was just the nature of the beast. Puk came in and took the role. So I think there is some backup, and I think the Marlins have got some options going forwards. But whenever you lose a guy that is, for me, or was certainly close to becoming that de facto closer that you could trust, to lose him at the moment is key. I think hopefully the injury keeps him. It is a case of how long is he out for.
Yeah,
and we'll have to wait to see for that one. But I think whenever you lose a guy that you can trust, I mean, how many players can you list off the roster that you say, I trust that dude?
Yeah,
there aren't many, and Puk was one of them. And for while he's gone, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, it really is, mate. And to your point there, he's on the 15-day IL, but who knows how long? Again, we had the same. Trevor came out of the game. Hey, I think I could have kept going. Next thing is Trevor's been down nigh on a month already. You just don't know with these arm injuries. Like, you just don't know with Puk, like a nerve-related issue. Like, it doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound good. We hope it is. We hope it's okay. And we hope this is just one of those where they, maybe they see an opportunity in the schedule. But actually, going back to this series with the Reds, like, you can't take anything for granted in baseball. You absolutely can't. The Nats they've been playing some decent ball. So who knows what kind of Nats you get. You're going to be on the road then in Colorado. You're then on the road. I think they've got a 3-city road trip. So it's going to be tough for the Fish. You may look at the records, but they're going to feel this with Puk. They really are. The only saving grace, mate, I would say, is to your point, there's a few saving graces here, which is good. Floro's done it before, and he stepped up and got the save straight away. So that's good. You've got other guys in there in the pen that are pitching well. You've also got Chargois about to return as well. He's going to be back tomorrow. I'm 99% sure of that. They didn't announce a corresponding move for Puk because they knew Chargois wasn't with the club and they can do without him, but he'll be there. He'll be there on Tuesday, I'm confident. And the way things were going for him, mate, it wouldn't shock me, once he kind of eases in, if this is a touch longer term or mid-term for Puk, like, it wouldn't shock me if Chargois ends up, having some save opportunities as well. Felt like Skip Schumacher was really impressed with Chargois in the role he was able to play, and he felt like he was trusting him as well. So that's the only saving grace, I'd say, where you lose Puk, but you do add back in there one of the trusted back-end arms, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he pitched well in, albeit 5 games before going down. So it is a case of it's almost restarting again. You can't buy in, you can't take any of that beginning and project it going forwards. It is a case of we'll see. And of course, with the injury, it is a case of we'll see what we get when we get it. But yeah, it's not like it's some guy that's a career minor leaguer. This guy has pitched at the major league level and shown some success, and that's the reason why the Marlins bought him over. So yeah, hopefully, I think you're right. He will probably get some, leverage appearances to begin with, and we'll see where we go with it, basically. But whenever you have a guy go down but have a guy come back, it's a bit of a softener, isn't it?
It is.
You're not exactly replacing like for like, but it's better than going deep into the minors and getting some aged minor leaguer that you just can't trust.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Chichi Gonzalez has not yet cleared waivers, I don't believe. So maybe he has, I don't know. But, it would have been Chichi time. It's not Chichi time this time around. It would have been Smelter. It would have been back to Smelts. He would have been the next man up. I guess. Who knows? Luckily, we got JT Chargois ready to rock and roll. To Sean's point there, it does soften the blow. Oh, man. Let's flip to the offensive side, mate. There's some, again, bittersweet here. bittersweet with the same situation in some ways. Let's talk about Jesus Sanchez, though, mate. He was literally swinging the hottest stick in the club and has been for it's a relative brief stint, but there's no doubt about it that Jesus Sanchez was absolutely swinging it. And he tweaked this hamstring the other day. He had a day off. They had another day off anyway. He then ends up reoccurring. I don't know if it was re-injuring the same hamstring, but let's assume it was. With a big play out in the outfield, made the grab actually, but hurt himself on that play. Firstly, for Jesus, like just how unfortunate it is that like at this moment, if this happened earlier in the year, we wouldn't really bat an eyelid and go, actually, that's probably not a bad thing. But the reality is the Marlins now finally, for them, Jesus has finally got it going. The big power stick, the lefty stick, he's got it going. This feels like such unfortunate timing for Jesus and for the Marlins, I'd say, mate. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, both. I mean, lucky for him for himself that he was playing well, because I think you spoke about the idea that he was riding that DFA train soon.
Mm-hmm.
And with this injury, that tacks on as well. And then if it's a slow start coming back, and all of a sudden you're halfway through the year, and the Marlins might be looking to make a move. So seeing some progress from him at the plate was very important. Yeah, the injury was an odd one, because he, as you said, he made the play and it was a nice play in the outfield. And again, I'm not a doctor, but it looked to me like it was almost when he was getting up, and he sort of had the cartoon legs going around and around and not moving anywhere. And
that was me getting home actually that night.
and I think that's from his reaction in his face when he was doing that. You could see the pain on his face. Whereas when he was making the play, there was no reaction. So I don't know whether it was actually just him trying to get up to sort of celebrate the nice play. Mm-hmm. That's where it happened. But yeah, I mean, he'd been playing with a bit of a bang, wasn't he? So I think it was a case of it was probably going to happen sooner or later, unfortunately, if he carried on playing. But yeah, it's such a shame, because he was a hot bat, he was playing well, and these young guys that struggle or have struggled for a while now, it's always nice to see them work through their struggles and get over that hill. And I think he was on his way to doing that. So it's such unfortunate timing.
Yeah, it really was. What it does do, in my opinion, is open up some extended playing time for Peyton Burdick, because what I must say is this Jesus Sanchez injury, from like the kind of reporting as such around it, sounds like this isn't like a minimum stint. This sounds like it could be weeks/months, multiple weeks into months, perhaps. I don't know the severity yet at this point. We'll see. But to that point, opens things up, I'd say, for Peyton Burdick, where his opportunity to me looked to be relatively blocked. I would say he was performing at AAA, but you've got, the overpaid vets, let's call them that. Plus you've got Jesus Sanchez with no options. You've got De La Cruz. It looked really crowded. All of a sudden right now, this has opened up for Peyton Burdick. Like this is going to be a really intriguing moment here for him to see, can he piece it together? And we saw it in some ways with Jesus Sanchez. As soon as Avisel Garcia went down, Jesus thought, hey, I'm the guy now. I'm going to get most of the playing time. Next thing is, he started to get hot. I do wonder if we see something similar with Peyton Burdick, to be honest, mate. So what have you seen early on from him? I mean, it's only been a couple of games. He's been up and moving around the outfield. But I do feel, via the eye test anyway, that things look a bit better than last year at the major league level anyway. What about you?
I mean, he is what he is, isn't he? He's a power hitting guy that's not going to hit for a lot of contact. And the thing for me is, it's at 26 years old, he's no minor league prospect. He's no. He's no future player. He needs to hit now. I mean, he's older than Sanchez.
Is he?
The guy that he's replaced. So
holy smokes!
He's no young guy, that's for sure.
No.
To me, I mean, he can eat at AA and AAA because that power is going to play. He's going to run into a bad guy in the minors, and he's going to tee off on them. So I think this is his opportunity. This is his one main big potentially final opportunity to stick with the big club, and to do for me, he needs to hit a bit like what Sorare does. I mean, we spoke about Jazz and how we don't want that from him. We want a bit more of a complete game around him. But for me, Burdick is that guy that he's going to run into one every now and then, hit 220, hit 240. He's going to strike out, if he got enough plate appearances, 200 times. But if the power plays, and with Burdick, that's the one thing you can guarantee, that he's going to hit in Lone Depot Park. It's not a case, these aren't wall scrapers. He's going to hit for power.
No doubt.
It's whether or not he can do it consistently, because with that control, let's call it an issue, then he could just as likely hit 150, and that doesn't play. So I think it is a case of, let's see how the power plays. He was playing well in the minors, but everyone plays well in the minors, don't they? If they're real players. So let's say, like you said, he's got an opportunity and he's got to run with it. We are now at that situation of the season, even as early as it is, at next man up. And these young guys are going to get opportunities, and if they run with it, then they've got a chance. If they don't, then the Marlins have got a few players at the higher minors that are starting to perform, and they can cycle through those quite quickly.
Yeah, no doubt. He reminds me of, in a few ways, arms, particularly biceps. There's some Tyler O'Neill vibes here with Peyton Burdick. I think someone mentioned that on Twitter at some point along, probably when he hit his home run over the weekend. And when you look at like Tyler O'Neill's career, he had one amazing season in 2021, and he hit 34 home runs that season, but he hit 286. But prior to that, he had a good body of work. Like, he pretty much had a full season's worth of work sprinkled over 3 years. The COVID year obviously sprinkled in there as well. So he's had a lot more opportunity than like Peyton Burdick has had thus far. And I think, that's the other thing, is like, sometimes you need to give the guys the time and opportunity, but maybe the Marlins don't have that luxury. I don't know. Maybe Peyton Burdick won't have that luxury. But I can certainly see a Tyler O'Neill, maybe not, MVP level Tyler O'Neill that we saw 280, 34 bombs, but I could see career average kind of Tyler O'Neill out of Peyton Burdick. I truly can. I'm intrigued. This is the moment for him. Really is. Really interesting. The Marlins are in the mix. They're in the hunt. This isn't September at-bats when the club's cooked. This is the full juice in the clubhouse right now. And can Peyton Burdick step up with Jesus Sanchez going down? That is the question. We've got one other injury to talk about, and someone being recalled. We're running long, so let's talk about Jazz briefly. Jazz, this felt like 2022 all over again, mate, where in the same game, you end up with multiple guys going down. I'm pretty sure in 22, Brian Anderson, Jazz, and Sorare was like in the same game or two. Injury bug just hit the offense. That was the end of the offense and the end of the Marlins season. Let's hope this isn't the same. Jazz clatters into center field wall. This has always been the worry of Jazz in center field, where particularly going back to the wall, where that is the most unfamiliar situation for him. Ended up hitting his ankle, his knee, his foot, his toe, everything into this like concrete and chain link fence. It was something out of Prison Break. Anyway, didn't look good. Jazz wasn't in the game yesterday. He's going to see a specialist today. Jazz was heating up in this series as well, mate. Jesus Sanchez, the hottest stick, probably Jazz Chisholm Jr., the second hottest stick. This would be a huge blow for the Marlins right now if Jazz ends up with anything major or serious here on this collision, mate. It was a worrying scene. Where's your head at for this one? Is Jazz going to return without an IL stint, or is this going to be a long-term problem?
Yeah, visually it wasn't great, was it? It
wasn't.
It looked bad from whatever angle you want to look at it from.
Yeah.
And additionally, yeah, you're right. Any loss of Jazz for any length of period of time is going to be an issue. This offense is anemic as it is. Yeah. Taking away Jazz is going to be a concern, and it is a case of, if it's a short-term IL stint, then we're back to what we just said about next man up, and someone's going to have to step up and fill that void. But
Hampson season, baby, Hampson again.
If it's for a longer period of time, then that's when you're talking about the season, because the Marlins are so delicately balanced at or around 500, and arguably undeservedly, if you look at the run score to runs given up, the Pythagorean theory, which I know you are a big fan of,
big fan,
big proponent of. You can argue quite rightly that they've been a little bit lucky. And teams can be lucky for a whole season. The sample size isn't just that it reverts straight away, but you're playing with fire and taking big pieces out of your lineup, like Jazz is and has, and same with Jesus recently. That's when you really start to sort of see the team drop a game here, a game there. I mean, losing 2 to the Reds isn't great.
No.
And we've got Washington coming up, and it is a case of we really need to see 2-3 wins from that series.
Yeah, they really do. I just wanted to call out just on the numbers and the luck element, etc. I'm with you, and as you know, I'm not a huge Pythag guy, and etc. etc. And listen, I've seen most of the Marlins games in full. I've missed 1 or 2 along the way. What I'd say is, I wouldn't describe this team as lucky. I know you can point to the amount of 1-run games and 1-run wins that they've had and say, oh, this team's lucky, it's overperforming. I don't think that's true. I wouldn't say they've been lucky. In the main, I would just say that when the heat has been on, the pen has stood up and delivered. And so I wouldn't say the Marlins are a lucky team at this point. We'll wait to see, but I would say they need their luck to continue, if indeed they are being lucky at this point, because losing Jesus, left-handed stick, if Jazz is down for any time, left-handed stick, it's going to be an uphill task. They just haven't got the left-handed sticks anywhere to replace these guys. And so, they're facing righties, 3 out of every 5 days, 4 out of every 5 days. And so we know that righty on righties, it's going to be tougher. So we'll wait to see. Final news. It's the right place to finish for this episode, mate. Garrett Cooper returns from the longest ear infection ever, but returns with a bang. Big knock in yesterday's game, mate. Again, we lose Jesus Sanchez, but we gain a Garrett Cooper back. And for me, and I think I tweeted about it a few days ago, like Coop's loss in the lineup, like losing him, all of a sudden this team offensively and wins and losses had a real sticky patch. And it's great to see just Coop back up, straight away hitting, which is important. I think the Marlins had to curtail any kind of rehab, to be honest with you. They're a bit like, Coop, we need you. With Jesus down and Jazz down, like it was like, Coop, we need you. And Coop answered the call there, mate. How pleasing was that for you to see?
For me, immediately, I think you're right. I think he got 1 game as a rehab start and back up with a big club, and to get the double, to get the lead-inducing hit that eventually was the defining hit of the game, got the win, is huge. And I think Cooper, for all the concerns I have about him having to try and carry the team, hopefully if it's a couple of days for Jazz with Arias and Sorare, and we need to see some other guys step up, don't we? Because Coop being back is huge. I think you're right that the team didn't look the same without him. The runs dried up a bit, the wins dried up a bit. So to get Coop back is massive, but if it's at the cost of Jesus, right, it is at the cost of Jesus. If it's at the cost of Jazz as well, that's going to be a lot of heavy lifting for him, and that's a concern for me, because he did speak last year about the issues that he had with trying to carry the team and the pressure being a lot, and it is. I get it. I think there's a little bit more around him at the moment with Arias being there, with Sorare heating up. We didn't have either of those guys last year, one through injury, one because he was not on the team.
No.
So hopefully there is a little bit more depth there, that Coop doesn't feel all that pressure, and he can just do his job, and that is hit gap to gap, hit for a good contact. Doesn't need to win the game on one swing every at bat. He can just play within himself. I think that would be ideal for me, and that's certainly what I'll be looking at over the next couple of games.
Yeah, me too. It's great to have him back and great to see him making an impact. And I think, the team needed him and they've asked him and lent on him and he stood up and delivered. Let's hope there's not a reoccurrence of this ear infection. But great to see. I'm interested to see with him back and they had to lean on Gurriel a ton for obvious reasons. Arias sprinkled in there a touch at first base, but it was pretty much like Gurriel all the way. And Gurriel's been fine. He's been okay. But I'm intrigued, with this Jesus Sanchez situation, potentially the Jazz situation. We're going to see a bit more Soler out in right field. I think it's going to be interesting if that happens. And maybe, Coop and Gurriel then share the first base DH role. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. It was good to see Coop back in the field straight away as well yesterday. So, that was encouraging. Overall, in the last week or so, it's been it's felt like a tougher period, but overall the Marlins are still hanging tough, mate. Just one game below 500. This series against the Nats on deck. If they win that series, then they'll be back, potentially over 500 or at 500. And so, would we just keep ticking series away? The club's hanging around 500. It's felt a bit tricky, but overall, the Marlins are still in the spot that they wanted to be, I would say. Yes, they're having to deal with injuries, but everyone's having to deal with injuries. And so, you just got to hope that they hang tough and maybe the rotation can actually take that step up. I think that's the next point for this club to truly survive it until the deadline. They're going to need the rotation to take a level up, I think. And if they can do that, then I think they have the ability to hang around that 500 mark. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it is a case of I took a quick look and the starting rotation for the team is pretty much bang average in a lot of stats. 15th, 14th, 16th. And that's kind of, I mean, obviously with the loss of Pablo and with Cueto not being here, and Sandy with his struggles, that's kind of right, I think. But I think there is room for improvement. It's not like what we've seen so far is what we should expect going forward. I think.
Agreed.
I think there is some growth there, and I think, I mean, a lot of people were talking on Twitter about the idea, this is an easy set of games, and we should be X games over 500 as we enter June. But we've been on the flip side of this, where people are talking about the Marlins being bottom feeders, and you can't just pencil in that's a win, that's a win, that's a win against teams like the Nationals. You got to go and beat them.
Yeah,
they're not just going to roll over and let you, play with them. So it is a case of 2 weeks. We get to June. If they're still at 500, then with all the issues that they've had with the rotation and with injuries, you're into June now, and you're getting closer and closer to where you start to make these sort of season-defining choices. Do we trade for this player? Do we trade for that player? And they've already made one huge defining moment, and that is bringing up Eury. So I think the team have shown a willingness to put some effort into competing this year. And is it because Kim is in that final year of her contract and she knows that she needs to make some noise potentially? If that's the case, then I'm all for it, because let's get to June, let's be at 500 and let's start to make some moves, make some noise, bit of excitement. Wouldn't that be nice?
It would be absolutely glorious. With that being said, we're going to wrap things up there. Shaun finishes the episode perfectly, bringing the noise and the excitement. Oh, man. If the Nats sweep us now, I mean, boy, oh boy, next Monday is going to be tough. I'm not expecting that. Guys, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. Of course, thanks for joining me. Thanks to the UK GOAT. Of course, Shaun Barrett joining me on a Monday extravaganza. Nearly 40 minutes of Locked On Marlins. We went deep. We had to. There was so much to get into. Guys, I'm back tomorrow, of course. And I have my good friend Rob Langley on the show, who is at the Twitter handle Nationals_UK. So we're going to get a UK Nats perspective on this club and this team. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know if Rob is listening to this episode. Hope he is. I'm going to be completely honest. I've not seen one pitch of Nationals baseball. I have no idea what that club is doing. What I have seen, though, they've been mixing it with the Mets recently. So I wonder if this club is pesky. We'll wait to see. But Rob will be joining me tomorrow, getting into everything Washington Nationals. And then delighted to announce as well, the Godfather is on the show on Wednesday. Danny Martinez joining the show for Wednesday's episode. That one will be out relatively early. It's a UK-friendly recording time. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Hit subscribe wherever you get your pods, or, of course, to the YouTube channel. But that's going to do us for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow.